When I ask people, what book are you currently reading, or when was the last time that you read a book, the answer that I most commonly get is, gosh, I've not read a book since I left school. Or, I know I read a book some months ago, but I can't remember what it was all about. And while some people are very happy with the state of play where they don't really have a reading culture, many people will often say, I would love to develop a reading culture, but I don't even know where to start. This series of videos are for you. Now, if you're going to embrace a reading culture, if you're going to cultivate an enduring reading culture, you're going to have to do what I call drain the shallows from your life. And how do you know that you have shallowness in your life? I'm going to identify three things. The first is, in your free time, are you normally consumed with a steady diet of social media, of podcasts, or just aimlessly scrolling through your phone? Or just watching Netflix after movie after movie after movie, mindlessly, not particularly choosing what you want to watch, or even if indeed you are watching a fantastic series, let's say, or a series of movies, this has become really the dominant action in your life. If this is the case, then you're most probably engaged in shallowness during your free hour. Why? Because what happens is that you are consistently consuming ideas and thoughts from people continuously without giving yourself time to stop and to think about which of these ideas, which of these thoughts are really your own. The second signal of shallowness in your life will be the kinds of conversations that you find yourself caught up in. And here I'm not even talking about the animals who are often consumed with talking about sex and intimacies that should actually be remain in people's private lives. I'm just talking about the kind of aimless conversations we find ourselves caught up in where we are actually gossiping or complaining about the politics or what the economy is doing and how the dollar is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, going up or going down. Such that by the end of these conversations, you can't remember what you really talked about. Or at least weeks from now or months from now, there's nothing memorable about that conversation. So again, this is shallowness in our lives. If you find that all you're doing is talking about people, but in no way has that conversation elevated yourself or your listeners, that is shallowness in conversation. And the third point is about shallowness in our work. Carl Newport introduces a very good test for how you can find out if your work is shallow work or if your work is deep work and therefore valuable for the company. When you look at the work that you're currently involved in, what you do from day to day, the tasks that you've been hired to do, ask yourself this question. How long would it take a very intelligent, fresh graduate to master your job? Will it take them a month? Then that means the work that you're doing is repetitive and it's not particularly valuable. Will it take them 6 months? Okay, that means that you're doing slightly more complex tasks. Or will it take them 15 years to actually master what you do from day to day? Now, you're going to have to be very humble to answer this question. If the answer is anything from even a year, and you are a professional who's been working for the last 5, 10, 15, or more years, and yet a fresh, intelligent graduate can master your tasks, then obviously your tasks are caught up in shallowness. That means you've been producing and you are producing shallow work. we need to go deeper. You will need to produce deeper work. If you want to start introducing deeper conversations with your friends, and when I'm talking about deeper conversations here, I'm not referring to the commonly held belief that every time you meet somebody, you need to be coming up with some kind of business deal, or you need to be making some kind of connection that will advance your career or your purse, expand your purse in a specific way. I'm talking about here deep conversations that ultimately will build your characters and will build yourselves to be better people, or will turn your environment or your country, will make it a better place. This is what I'm calling deep conversations. And you will know that you're engaged in a deep conversation when it moves above the superficialities and you find yourselves discussing principles. When you're talking about the workplace, you are discussing what is the purpose of this organization? What's the broader vision? Is it going beyond the bottom line? But in what way is it contributing to the betterment of people? So in a sense, this is what I'm talking about, leaning to conversations that are moving towards principles that are very strong and not easily moved. Rather than having conversations that are based on opinions that you got from the newspaper or that you got from a podcast, because these are opinions that are held by people. And then what often happens is after we have consumed them for a long time, we make them our own and we pretend that that is what I think, when in principle we've actually been spoon-fed by what is being said here. And that's what we want to get away from. And reading is the solution. Why? Because when you're reading, you're forced to think about what it is that is being said. And when you're thinking about what is being said, in a sense, you are critically engaging with your thoughts. And when you do that, slowly by slowly, you're cultivating principles and ideas that you want to live by. And when you're then engaged in conversation with people, this is going to come across. And oh, how much more beautiful it's going to be when the other person is also reading, because then it's going to be an exchange of ideas. And this will make a much richer interaction. And the same thing will happen when it comes to work. Because what you will find yourself doing is you'll be moving away from simply copying and pasting what has been done in the past. And particularly if you're an intelligent person, you'll realize that you're able to coast and to get away with doing very little at work and yet getting congratulated for it. Stop selling yourself short. You know that you can do better and you know that you can contribute more. So even if you know that producing at 10%, you're already going to get lauded for that, you have to find out in what way can I produce at 90%. And this again comes to the question about reading. When you are reading, your mind has learned how to stretch itself, such that when you're given a piece of work to do, you'll find yourself thinking about it a bit deeper. If there's research to be done, you will do the research that needs to have been done. You will write reports that are better. Your presentations are no longer going to be presentations that are just run of the mill. They're very well thought out presentations. But why? Because every single day when you read, and I do encourage that every single day you read at least for an hour. And here I'm not talking about a newspaper. Newspapers, if you didn't know, are usually targeting people of average. And that means the language and the ideas and whatever it is that is going on is always going to be for the average person because they're selling to the mass market. That's why it's called popular media, or that's why it's called mass market. It's for the masses. But if you're going to be reading, I'm saying that you have to read something deeper, literature, novels, books that are deep, history books, autobiographies. What these do is they're a gym for your mind. So every day, at least spend 1 hour, if not 2 hours. So what it does is it expands your mind and forces you to begin to think in a different way and to work with hard things. Reading also gives a structure to the way that we think, because books are written in a structured way, good books that is, because there is a lot of nonsense out there. But if you read a really good book, it is very well structured. It is structured logically. And that now helps me and you when we read a book to also think logically. I don't know if you've been in conversation, God forbid that it should be you yourself, are in conversation with people, or you write something which makes absolutely no sense, no logical progression in what the person is thinking. And this already tells you that this person that you're dealing with is very silly. Why? Because we're not thinking logically. Reading is going to curb that. Reading helps us to structure our thinking. So what am I saying here about reading? I'm making the case that reading is going to eliminate uselessness, shallowness from your life. It's going to convert you into a more thoughtful person who thinks, who dreams, who is more elevated, and ultimately a person who enjoys life more.